Hello, everyone on the line, and welcome to this GCBC online learning event. We have a few people still joining us, but we will begin with welcomes and hellos. My name is Samantha Morris, and I'm joining you from the GCBC program team at Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, in London. And I'm joined in facilitating this session by my colleague, Ben Evans. The GCBC, the Global Centre on Biodiversity for Climate, aims to support developing countries to shape decision-making and develop policy that better values, protects, and restores and sustainably manages biodiversity to tackle climate change and poverty. We do this by funding innovative research, synthesizing evidence, sharing our findings, and supporting a global network of researchers, practitioners, and policymakers. The GCBC is a UK official development assistance programme funded by the UK's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, and managed in partnership with DAI and Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. I'm absolutely delighted to have everyone join us for our second online learning event, where we look to highlight the innovative research being carried out by GCBC-funded projects. This event today will be an opportunity to hear from our colleagues in Kenya about the GCBC-funded project, Understanding Cherangani Links to Human Wellbeing. This forest landscape and restoration project is an example of a Kenya-led interdisciplinary partnership, which has come together to understand how natural resources can be used and managed to manage sustainably for human well-being. Today, we are very fortunate to be joined by speakers from the project lead, Nature Kenya, and their partners from across the consortium. This includes the Cherangani community, National Museums of Kenya, Kenya Forest Research Institute, Kenyatta University, and the Kenya Forest Service. So we have a very knowledgeable and diverse group joining us online today. How are we going to run this session? Well, we've got a lot to pack in. I will invite each of our speakers from this diverse and knowledgeable group to share a brief summary of their component of the project, some early results, and why work like this is essential to tackle the crisis affecting us today. We'll then move to Q&A. With the time that we have left to us, we're hoping that will be 15 minutes, but we'll see how we go. And we're hoping for a lively and interesting discussion. So please use the Q&A function in Zoom if you have access to it to type in your questions that you might have for our speakers throughout the presentation. You're also invited to use the chat function to introduce yourself to others on the call today. I want to acknowledge as well, before we get started, the wide range of expertise we have on this call. You will have an opportunity to hear from our speakers during the Q&A, but as you can see, we also have other members from the wider project team joining us today. And I want to specifically acknowledge the members of the Cherangani Indigenous community who are joining us online, and also Director of Nature Kenya, Paul Matiku, who won't be speaking today, but is here for the Q&A. So I want to acknowledge you in particular. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, James Mutunga Joshua from Nature Kenya, to begin his component of the presentation. Can I hand over to you now?
Yeah, thank you for that. And now, because I have an opportunity to introduce myself, my name is James Mutunga, and I work at Nature Kenya as a local action manager. And in this project, I am supporting the team that is leading on management, providing leadership, and also reporting the project. We are working as a big consortium, like I'll show you in the slides. And of course, I will end up by sharing with you the lessons that we've learned for the past few months that we've been into this project so far. And we are lucky to have our partners who have been very supportive and cooperative in the project implementation. Yeah, Samantha, we can see everything. I think I'll start now. And if you can go back to the slide that has the title, please. So this, the photo on the background that you are seeing there, that is Cherangani Hills, where the project area, we are implementing the project. The title of the project that we are implementing in Cherangani is Understanding Cherangani Links to Human Well-Being. Next, please. Cherangani Hills are located in the Rift Valley and locally under the devolved governance in Kenya, the forest strands across 3 counties, the county of West Pokot, some part in Trans Nzoia, but the largest part of the forest is in Elgeyo Marakwet. Cherangani Hills forests are an Afro-Montane global biodiversity hotspot, a key biodiversity area, and a critical water catchment for 2 main basins, one being the Lake Victoria, which is drained by the Nzoia River, and the Kerio Valley, which flows into Lake Turkana. Next, Samantha. Under the changing climate and the rapidly increasing population around this landscape, the forests are faced with threats of encroachment as people settle inside the forest, do farming, extract wood, materials, and grazing, amongst other challenges. Next, please. Yeah, so the such question for this project is, how can natural resources in Cherangani Hills forest be used in a way and at a rate that maintains and enhances biodiversity and promotes resilience of habitats and benefits that they provide under the changing climate? Therefore, the hypothesis is that understanding the levers for linking forests and biodiversity with human well-being and climate resilience in Cherangani forests will provide foundation for future sustainable natural resource management. Next, please. Samantha, next. Oh, sorry. The main aim of this project is promoting positive long-term impacts for biodiversity, poverty alleviation, and ecosystem resilience to climate change in Cherangani. And the research approach is to carry out, the project approach is to carry out research, generating evidence, leading into development of solutions to be applied by government, the local communities, and other actors to protect and sustainably use biological diversity for promoting resiliency in Cherangani. Next. The 3 main outcomes of this project include: 1, robust new evidence and knowledge on sustainable forest management, building resilience to climate change, and research partnerships and networks that are created and strengthened. Next. The 5 main outputs of this project include an ecosystem services assessment for Cherangani forest landscape, restoration opportunity assessment methodology, quantifying degraded areas for restoration in that landscape, business case for restoration of Cherangani Hills forests, an ecosystem-based adaptation strategy and action plan to guide resiliency building in Cherangani, and participatory forest management plans to support inclusive governance and management of forests in that landscape. Next. So this project was designed to be implemented in partnership, Nature Kenya taking the overall charge on leadership, management of the project, and also reporting, and also developing forest restoration business case and the ecosystem-based adaptation strategy and action plan. And Kenyatta University is leading on two outputs, the ecosystem service assessment and restoration opportunity assessment methodology. Next. The third partner, the national museums, carried out biodiversity surveys in Cherangani to inform the ecosystem service assessment being done by Kenyatta University. And Kenya Forest Research Institute, KEFRI, and Kenya Forest Service are leading in the development of participatory forest management plans. Next. This slide, I will hand over to Solomon Cherongos for a minute to say something.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Solomon Cherongos, representing Cherangani Indigenous Post Community. With me are two members, Elder Barnabas Musemo and Joseph Chibobey. We are lucky to join you in this learning event this afternoon. So let the officers who have been working here proceed such that if we have any question, we might ask. Otherwise, we are very happy with the project so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cherongos. Back to you, Samantha.
Great. Thank you, Mutunga. And thank you, Cherongos, for your contribution there. We're now going to hand over to our next speaker. As Mutunga explained, this project involves many partners and each taking a component of the project overall. So can I now hand over to Dr. Paul Moria from Kenyatta University to speak about his component. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, and the speakers before me who have spoken before me. My name is Paul Moria from Kenyatta University. At Kenyatta University, we have a team that I'm leading, and we are leading on the implementation of two key components. That is the ecosystem service assessment for Cherangani forest landscape, and also the restoration opportunity assessment and mapping, which we are also implementing. These are two interrelated components with each informing the other, and therefore we designed it in such a way that the two activities are running in parallel. So I can start with the ecosystem service assessment, where we are looking at, we are using the TESA toolkit developed by a team some years back, but we are using the latest version of 2022, and we are using it and also adopting other methods to understand the current value of services in ecosystem services, including water services, harvested wild good, cultivated goods, climate regulation, that is carbon stocks and carbon sequestration. We're also looking at pollination and cultural services. You can go to the next slide. And next slide, please. And the method that we are using for ecosystem service assessment, there are several methods that are being used. And first of all, by design, we are using stakeholder consultations, and also having workshops, secondary holding focus group discussions, household surveys, field surveys, GIS analysis, gathering secondary data, and also working closely with partners to create synergies, like working with KEFRI to get data on carbon stocks, and working with Water Resource Authority to obtain data that would have been difficult for Kenyatta University to get, that is on water. So we, as of now, we have preliminary results on ecosystem service assessment. And if you can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. So we have some information. This is data collection in the field on carbon by KEFRI. And you can go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, we have collected we have now got some preliminary information, especially on some of the key surfaces like harvested goods. We know that from the data we have collected, we have found that about livestock grazing in the forest is worth about 4 billion Kenya shillings. Other wild harvested goods are worth about 2 billion Kenya shillings. And then we also have crops that are produced within the forest boundaries, which is worth about 8 billion Kenya shillings. But in the 5-kilometer buffer around the forest, there is the production of about 83 billion worth of crops. We are now working on the future scenarios, and in the future scenarios, we are looking at a situation where we do nothing, and we continue having the current trend, and also the alternative or a scenario where we restore the degraded areas. What would be the value of the surfaces? In this particular case, harvested goods. In the future scenarios where we do nothing, or if we restore. So let's go to the next slide. We have also looked at water surfaces, primarily on this slide, water provision, and we have looked at the domestic use for data from the household questionnaires. We have also got information on the water consumed by livestock, and more importantly, water consumed by large-scale abstractors who serve in towns and other urban areas around, which rely on the landscape. And we have estimated that currently, the value of that water could be 6.7 billion Kenya shillings. And based on the population increase, we expect that to raise to about 10.7 in the next 30 years. So we also found out that only 5% of the local residents who are living just next to the forest practice irrigation. But we also know that irrigation is happening downstream, and they need a lot of water downstream along the three key rivers, Takwel, Kerio, and River Nzoia. And we are now compiling data to see how much water they could be using and how much water they will be using in the future. We also know there is some electricity being produced at the Takwel Dam, and we also are interested in finding out how that will change in the future. We know there are the two dams that are planned to produce about 80 megawatt of electricity. So we'd want to understand how much that will be, especially if we restore and if we don't restore in the future. Next slide, please. So next slide, some other. Okay. Well, the other aspect is restoration opportunity assessment and mapping, where we are employing a methodology called ROAM, restoration opportunity assessment and restoration opportunity assessment methodology, which was developed at IUCN and the World Resource Institutes. And this is also another highly participatory method. But even before we could go further, you go to the next slide. We had to estimate, we had to know what is happening to the land use land cover. And we have actually worked on how it has been happening to the land use land cover. And we have produced GIS maps on the land use land changes for the last 30 years. Actually, this week, we are working on projecting that land use land cover to future scenarios to see what is likely to happen in the future. We are using this information for both processes, the ecosystem size assessment and also restoration opportunity assessment. If you go to the next slide, what has been happening mainly on the land use, if you go to the next slide, is that you can actually see this graph shows a change in land use, and you can actually see cropland is increasing, has been increasing the last 30 years, both in the buffer area of the forest and also in the forest, people are encroaching more. But of course, this is coming from other land uses. We are seeing grasslands, we are seeing bushlands reducing. We are seeing parts of the forest decreasing to give way for cultivated goods and also human settlements. And that is what is happening, and is informing how we are going to shape the future scenarios for both the restoration and the ecosystem size assessment. If you go to the next slide. Next slide, please. So on the restoration opportunity assessment and mapping, we started with the consultation, participatory mapping with the members of the Roko community, who included Chelgos, who was talking before me, was in that meeting, and other members and other stakeholders who are represented here and others out. We did a participatory method where the Roko people showed us where, or if using physical maps, where degradation has happened and areas that need to be restored by plotting polygons on physical maps. We then conducted GIS, digitization of the polygons, and also got them now onto GIS software, conducted analysis, went back to the field, to the same communities, and went back to the areas that they showed us, and now verified the areas and conducted further GIS analysis. And what has happened is that now we have produced a map of Cherangani landscape, especially the forest areas, showing the areas that need to be restored. And according to our analysis, we have seen about 31,000 hectares of forest need to be restored. Now we are working on the economics of the restoration, working on what will happen to carbon sequestration and carbon stocks, seeing what is going to happen on the economics for the local community so that we can finalize the report. We also did a diagnostic of whether the community and the stakeholders are ready to restore, and we found that basically there is a motivation, but some elements need to be worked on, especially on community awareness. We also know that some of the enablers exist, but there are some gaps that we are going to address in the report that we are going to write. But you also realize that we come to the implementers and the implementation institutional framework, we found that there are some gaps, and we are going to address them in our final report so that we can define the implementers as they restore the landscape. The last slide, please. In the last slide, I'm trying to give the way forward. Next slide, please. On the ecosystem surface assessment, we are now completing the section. We are now working on the section for climate regulation and carbon stocks. We are also projecting the current values to the future scenarios. And future scenarios, we complete the report we validate the report before we produce the final report. By validation, I mean we'll go back to the same stakeholders who validated the report. The same thing is also happening for the restoration opportunity assessment and mapping. We are finalizing analysis, and we're completing the draft and validate the report before we can say we have the final report, which can be used for the other components of the project and also for implementation by the stakeholders. Thanks a lot for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moria, for that whirlwind tour through a very important component of the project. We really appreciated it. We're now going to hand over to Dr. Ronald Mulwa from National Museums of Kenya. You've heard from Dr. Moria about the work that the project has been doing to assess the Cherangani forest landscape at an ecosystem level. Now, Dr. Mulwa is going to talk a little bit more about it at an individual species level. So, Dr. Mulwa, can I hand over to you in the conference room in Nairobi?
Yes, thank you very much, Samantha. Yes, so in this project, National Museums of Kenya conducted biodiversity surveys in Cherangani Hills. And the way we approached it is through qualitative desktop review initially to gather a comprehensive checklist of flora and fauna in this area. That was also backed up by field surveys conducted following standard methodology for sampling different flora and fauna. And yeah, so the report is actually underway in compilation. Next slide, please. Results. In terms of plants, we documented 1,278 different plant species in the area belonging to 124 families, 16 of them being endemic to that area, 72 listed under CITES, that is protection against trade, 20 species of alien invasive species. Several others in IUCN Red List are still under compilation. And there were 3 species that were recorded for the first time in this ecosystem. Next slide. We also assessed, in terms of insects, we assessed bees and butterflies in particular, given their potential in ecosystem services and also in a business case. So for bees, there are two key species, the African honeybee and the stingless bee, which were recorded across the entire all the blocks in Cherangani. Yeah, and of course, there are many other bee species which belong to at least 13 genera, but these were the two key ones to find out, given their potential commercial value in terms of honey production and harvesting. Next. Butterflies, yeah, so we had 64 species of butterflies recorded there, both from literature and also in the field. 41 of them being like, first records for Cherangani. You can see the team there, engaging the standard methods of sweep netting and also baited butterfly traps in sampling butterflies. Next slide. Birds, 219 species within 55 families are recorded, 6 of them being in the IUCN red list as of conservation concern. Of course, the methods here were used like mist netting and other standard methods. Next. In terms of herpetofauna, here 28 species, 15 of them being actually encountered from the field, which included 10 amphibians, that is frogs, and 5 reptiles, 4 lizards and a snake. And in general, there are 6 of these species of conservation concern. Next slide. Yeah, in terms of fish, we sampled fish along the river network within the entire block, and at least 17 species of fish were sampled, and they occurred in different levels of abundances, with the most abundant being the Ambusia affinis, and then of course differing in abundances up to the least common, the Zyretiatus rotundus. Next slide. Mammals also surveyed using various methods and also including key informant interviews with indigenous people who has knowledge of animals, with mammals where they have been seeing them. And a total of 71 species were recorded from literature, from field encounter, and from interviews, with 3 species being of global conservation concern based on IUCN red. Next. Yeah, and just to emphasize that here is the field NMK biodiversity research team in the field, consisted of experts in botany, mammals, birds, reptiles and amphibians, fish, and also insects. We want to say that we also engaged very well with the Kenya Forest Service. As you can see, we have the security guards from Kenya Forest Service. We also worked with the local communities as well as the indigenous people who gave us a lot of information based on the indigenous knowledge. And of course, Nature Kenya was very supportive from the field staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mulua, for that presentation. It's really astounding to hear about the number of species that you were able to catalogue and describe as part of this exercise. And I think the photo on the screen is testament to the number of people that need to be involved to do work of this scale. So thank you for that. I'd now like to welcome to the virtual stage our next speaker, Dr. Musingo Mbuvi, who is director of the Kenya Forestry Research Institute, more often known as KEFRI. Dr. Mbuvi, can I ask you to begin your presentation, please?
Yes, Afternoon from Kenya. My name is Musiko Mbuvi, as you have heard. And the part you are dealing with actually is collecting data to be able to come up with management plans that are to be implemented by the communities in the Cherengani ecosystem. When you're doing the plans, we look at what are the community's requirements, what can the resources in Cherengani provide. In the event there is a surplus, what can they do with the surplus? And in the event there is actually a shortage in terms of demand, we propose ways in which they will be able to raise what is required to ensure the resource is managed sustainably. So from the survey, we're able to undertake household surveys, where we worked with about 1,800 households from the 5 blocks of Kapolet, Chesoi, Lelan, and we also did focus group discussions with communities to actually ascertain whether what we're getting from the households was really true, and where there are disparities, we try to validate and confirm. We also did key interviews with communities, government officers, and NGOs in that area. We'll be able to get insights from experts in that region. And the photo is actually why we are doing actually a focus group discussion, mapping the resources and the way the area is perceived by the communities who are expected to participate in the management of the resource. Next. Next slide. So as I have said, we have been able to work in the 5 forest blocks, collect social and ecological data. We have been able to actually have also the questionnaires from 185 households. We did a first discussion in each of the forest blocks and did 52 keynote interviews, where actually we have data from experts from both the community, government officers, and NGOs working in that community. And one of the photo shows actually a focus group discussion being held with elders who have knowledge about the area. They've been here for quite a long time. They can give us a trend going back to over 40 years from the present. Next. Next slide. Our key findings is that the main source of livelihood are livestock, where we have dairy, sheep, and poultry and goats. They also are involved in crop farming, targeting potatoes, maize, fashion food for commercial purposes, vegetables, and phytogram, and the area being high altitude. They also grow tea. The other minor source of income is beekeeping, small businesses, and again, they are microfinance institutions. That means they can be able to start village banking to provide cash for loans and also improve their own issues. From the survey, communities are involved in the management of the forests. And of course, since PFM is starting in the area, they are still trying to come up with how will they work with KFS and other stakeholders. Therefore, conflicts were actually highlighted as one of the key areas. One opportunity is that the communities have scouts who are working with KFS and local administration in the management of the forests. These are some of the opportunities that can be used as communities and KFS start working as partners. Next. Next slide. The impacts on human activity in the forest that there was overgrazing was actually noted. There is charcoal production. Because there are no clear boundaries, there was perceived encouragement to the forest, which needs to be determined through proper boundary marking. And of course, there was extraction of forest product from the forest, which was not formal. And as I've said, without clear boundaries, it's not easy to determine whether it's an encroachment or an encroachment. The community forest associations numbers are low, and they need to be awareness needs to be created for them to be able to participate effectively and adequately in the management of forests. It was clear that the community need to be capacity built on PFM and other activities they are engaging in for them to participate effectively and maximize on their time so that they are able to gain resources and improve their livelihoods. Of course, population increase is exerting pressure, which may lead to encroachment. In some forests, there was actually fire instances which will be managed. And the Cherengani ecosystem has got wildlife, which leads sometimes to human-related conflicts. And as we have said, there are conflicts between CFA members and the members who are not members of the CFA. Because as you know, when you put regulations on access, people are likely to defy or not to really comply in most cases. There's also a need to ensure communities are well sensitized on what is being done so that we actually enhance compliance. And communities felt that there was actually inadequate involvement in formulation of policies and legislation, not just on forest, but the entire livelihood issues affect the communities in the area. The photo demonstrates assessment of forests to be able to determine how much resource is found. And you can see to actually measure the DBH, you need a team. That tells you the forest is quite intact, very virgin, with huge indigenous trees that need to be protected. What we assessed was the species, stem density, diameter, breast size, as those people are trying to measure. And then we also had disturbance indicators. And in total, we did 64 plots in the 5 forest blocks to be able to determine the amount of resources available. Then eventually, when you're doing the planning, how much can we communities utilize without actually damaging the ecosystem? The initial resource that you have 25 wood species from 20 families. And the list of the families that were rich is actually Olesia, Araresia, Maitisia. Mature trees were, as evidence you have seen in the photo previously, but these trees, quite a few of them are not of timber value. That means the possibility of trees of timber value may have been cut. And that means if you are going to do rehabilitation, as Dr. Mori has indicated, we may need to target on high value tree species in our rehabilitation process. And I think the issue that saplings were not many because there was a bit of overgrazing, and the generation can be a challenge if you don't have actually proper zoning of the forest ecosystem. That's actually what we're able to determine from the initial preliminary analysis of the reports for the forests where we worked. Next. Next slide, please. From the ecological assessment, we were able to record 7 new species. These ones have not been, not that they have not been recorded from previous ethnobotanica surveys that have been done. And one of them actually is Olea capensis. We also have Usinia osaniotis, which are species that are being recorded now. And we think if we did more assessment at high intensity, we'll be able to have more recordings of the species in the area, because the area is quite rich in diversity and some areas have not been degraded. And that means the biodiversity levels in the forest are quite high from the plant perspective. Now the photos show some of the species that we were able to record the first time in Cherangani ecosystem. Next. Next slide. Next slide. I think as Dr. Moya indicated, we actually partner in doing the soil carbon studies. And you can see that the soil carbon content in the topsoil actually was recorded high in dense forest, and the forest was getting degraded. The soil carbon content was getting less. That means that if you actually look at the total soil carbon, we need to manage our forest appropriately so that we don't get soil carbon levels going down. And this was noted in that where we have dense forests, the organic carbon was higher, and the forest gets degraded, the organic carbon was going down. And that means that where there is less canopy cover, you get decreased soil carbon, and that means that degradation has a direct relationship with organic carbon in your soil. This is what we need to discuss with communities and other partners to be able that the more you degrade, the less carbon you're able to store. And that's why if you have to look at carbon as a source of revenue in the future, then you need to balance between how much you are degrading so that you're able to retain a carbon stock that can be able to ensure a carbon offset business in Cherangani use. And I think this will be my last slide, and I say thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mvuvi. And I must apologize to our other speakers. I think there's a delay in the slide changing, so I'm very sorry for that. Thank you, Dr. Mvuvi, for that very enlightening presentation covering another incredibly interesting component of the project, looking at the forest as a resource in itself and how the community are interacting with it at the moment. We're going to come back to our Nature Kenya team in Nairobi for the final component of the presentation before we move to Q&A. So can I ask Mutunga to come off mute again and close the presentation? Thank you.
thank you, Samantha, for this. Going forward, the Kenya Forest Service, Carefree, Dr. Buvi, who's just spoken, and the Community Forest Association in Cherangani, associations in Cherangani, they will apply the evidence collected through socioeconomic surveys, ecological surveys, and ecosystem service assessment, restoration opportunity assessment methodology to develop participatory forest management plans for 5 target forest blocks. I think if we have another workshop, we'll be able to present that. Next, please. And Nature Kenya, with support from Kenyatta University, will utilize evidence from gathered from research on ecosystem service assessment and restoration opportunity methodology, which will provide evidence on benefits and costs of continued degradation and forest loss to upstream and downstream beneficiaries to define the desired solutions and investments by all beneficiaries in Cherangani, which will lead into development of business case for restoration of Cherangani landscape. And excuse me, Nature Kenya will adopt, has already adopted a tool and will be carrying out targeted socioeconomic assessments in Cherangani to generate data that will be used to develop a ecosystem-based adaptation strategy and also action plan. Next. Then last, Samantha, I would want to say the lessons that we have learned through the few months that we've been implementing this project with partners is that the partnerships are critical opportunities, especially in accessing expertise, diverse expertise. Engaging government can be cost-effective like what we have experienced, especially because we are working with staff that are salaried by the government. If we are to pay them using the project, it will be very expensive. And the power of many, we have delivered this far because we've been working as a group. So the power of many is very important. Thank you, Samantha, and thank you everyone for listening.
Right. Thank you very much for that presentation. I think we got a really fantastic overview of what is a very complex project with many partners involved, completing many different parts of the project itself. It is 15 minutes now until we're due to finish. So that is the amount of time that we have for Q&A. I just remind everyone that if you'd like to submit a question for any of our speakers today, you can do that in the Q&A function, or if that isn't working, then also in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing our screen now so we can see everyone. And we already have some questions coming in the Q&A. So let's see how many of them we can get through today. Just a reminder, if your question is for a specific speaker, please pop that in the question that you've asked. So our first question, there are 3 questions in there. But I think one of the ones that is the most interesting is perhaps their second question. So one of our questionnaires wants to know how the products or evidence that are being generated as a part of this project are being shared with the Cherangani community so that they can see the results of the research. Mutunga, can I hand over to you in the first instance to speak a little bit about that process of sharing results and evidence with the Cherangani community, and then maybe one of our representatives, Solomon, may wish to also answer.
Thank you, Samantha, for that. And like I started by saying, the project itself, the sharing starts with the design of the project, because it was designed to be implemented with partners. So data collection is very participatory. in every work component, like Dr. Moria showed, and during the ecosystem service assessment. The raw processes, Dr. Mulwa has showed in his picture that they were collecting the data, especially consuming indigenous and local knowledge to generate this evidence. Once this data and there were household surveys, key informant by Carefree, and also the focus group discussions. And there was also fora for awareness creation. These data once analyzed and the products developed, once analyzed and the reports developed, there will be validation workshops going back to the people so that they can really validate and see whether what they proposed or what the information they provided is what has been synthesized into the products. Then there will be feeding back to the communities once the products are already done, and especially now through the county governments, which have heavily been involved, so that they can get access to the final products and now, God willing, start discussing implementation. Thank you. I think if I've not really satisfied someone else, someone that can compliment.
Thank you. Would any of our other speakers like to offer any comments on that question of sharing results from the research with the Cherangani community? I wonder, Solomon, Cherangos, we've got you on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say about the process of participating in this research project, what it's been like for you and your community members?
Yeah, sure. Since the project started, it has been going on very well up to now. And maybe we hope it will proceed this way until finality. On the issue of sharing, we would like it to be the way Mr. Mutunga put it, but I have a slight question on the issue of carbon, because currently there are some interested people, quite a number of them, who are prospecting for or trying to develop carbon projects within Cherangani, and we are not really very clear on how that can be done. Maybe after this learning event, we might reach out to the office, to the director, or anybody who has that knowledge can assist us to really understand how is it going to be, because there are already guys on the ground, yet we have this research project coming up, trying to also quantify the offset or the amount of carbon that can be claimed within Cherangani. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. I think the question of the soil carbon has also come up from other people who've attended the webinar, very interested in that idea of understanding soil carbon and where it is stored and what that might mean in the future. I was wondering, Dr. Mbuvi, would you like to come in and offer any additional comments to what you covered in your presentation on soil carbon and opportunities in that area?
Samantha, our part was contribute to the below ground carbon, and then we also do the above ground carbon. That the above ground is the amount of carbon stored in plants and other organisms that are above the ground. The below ground is the amount of carbon stored in the soil, either being organic, and that will mean that we'll be able to determine how much carbon is in the entire ecosystem. Well, that what we translate to is how are the carbon fluxes. When you degrade the ecosystem, you are likely to lose the amount of carbon that was stored. And basically, anybody wanting to buy carbon, you need to know the stability and the trends. Is it increasing or reducing? When you degrade, it reduces the amount of carbon. And if you had commitments to buy carbon and pay for the carbon on an annual basis, you would want a scenario where the carbon is increasing so that both the community are able to make money in a predictive way. But then when in the event we degrade, it means the carbon will be reducing, and that will reduce the amount of income that is supposed to be earned by the people in that ecosystem. But currently, I think, as Keragos has indicated, the business of carbon now is kind of being regulated through an act which has been enacted. And I think the way he has put it is this better we have a discussion with Dr. Moria, who is actually leading that aspect of carbon as part of the ecosystem services which we'll be able to access from the ecosystem of Cherengani. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Dr. Mbuvi. It sounds like this issue of, or this area of the project is one that is of interest to a lot of people. There's a few questions in the Q&A around the soil carbon or the above ground carbon. One of our other questioners has asked, do you or are there any plans to expand or build on this project's impact by implementing similar projects in other forest reserves in Kenya? And I wondered if Mutunga or perhaps Dr. Paul Matiku from Nature Kenya might want to come in on that question about scaling the approach for this project, either out to other forests or beyond that. Can I hand over to one of you, please?
Dr. Matiku, please.
Thank you very much, James, and thank you, Samantha, for the opportunity. And for participants, because it's my first time to speak, I'm Paul Matiku, the Executive Director for Nature Kenya. And this project is a culmination of my 25, 26 years of experience in each of these elements in a fragmented manner. Hence the question. Pulling all this together is a first lesson for all of us to see how interdisciplinary research elements can come together to inform policy. And that links in with a question I have seen on ambitious result. Inform policy, but also impact consumers of the ecosystem services and plow back resources to maintain the Cherengani. Scaling up this work is what we think needs to happen. Within Cherengani itself, communicating with the stakeholders on the ground, packaging the business case, communicating it through all sorts of means of communication, engaging the downstream users, and getting them to bring back the areas which are degraded into forest to increase ecosystem services and maintaining the services people get without affecting the ability of the people in that area to thrive. We think the lesson here will be applicable elsewhere in Kenya, in Mount Kenya, and other forest ecosystems. And indeed, I'm seeing a global case study forming here, because it's a question of putting together all stakeholders to take action, no one to be left behind. So yes, there is high possibility that if we succeed in this project, it will be success elsewhere, because we are following a methodology that we believe is replicable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matiku, for that answer. I think that's really fantastic and a great indication of the kind of ways that work like this and approaches like this can be taken on board by other people in other parts of your country, but also globally. There's a lot to learn here. We have a few other questions, but I'm afraid we're not going to have time to answer them all today. We have just a couple of minutes left for us. So can I just assure you, if you've answered a question or you've asked a question in the Q&A and we haven't gotten to it, we will make sure to answer those questions offline and get in touch with you if we can, if you've not asked your question anonymously. I think given the amount of time we have left, I will draw us and our Q&A to a close there. It has been absolutely fantastic to have all of the speakers you see on the screen now join us for this learning event. So can you please join me in thanking them for spending this hour of their day with us. I'll just go around and thank everyone individually. Solomon Cherangos and the team in the Cherangani, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have James Matunga Joshua and the Nature Kenya team, Dr. Paul Moria from Kenyatta University, Dr. Ronald Mulwa from National Museums of Kenya, and Dr. Musingo Umbuvi from KEFRI. I didn't mention at the start, but we are actually also graced with the presence of our colleague from Kenya Forest Service, Dr. James Mwangombe, who hasn't presented today, but has been here listening in to the Q&A. I also want to acknowledge the participation of the wider team that you see on the screen, and in particular, our Nature Kenya Director, Paul Matiku. So thank you very much for joining us today. Just to let everyone know, we are going to continue running these learning events, so please stay with us for the next in our series, which will be in January 2025. We hope you've enjoyed the session and that the insights from our speakers have prompted you to reflect on your own working partnerships, what works well, and where they can be strengthened through collaboration, openness, and interdisciplinarity. If you want to learn more about this project, the Understanding Cherangani Links to Human Wellbeing, please visit the GCBC website or the Nature Kenya website, where you can find more information about this project. Like I said, this is the second in a series of learning events, so please stay with us for our next event in January. We hope to see you all there. A recording of this event will be made available on the GCBC website, and you're always welcome to reach out to the GCBC team via the website and the contact details there. I think that brings us to a close for today, right on the hour. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, people. Bye.
Everyone.
Samantha, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.